Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Christ is risen. What's going on with Donald Trump? I have seen so many people say that he's, all sorts of psychological issues, psychopath, blah, blah, blah. And I don't mean this to be a defense of Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump is a very incompetent president, but he's not legally incompetent. I don't believe that he has some mental or psychological deficiency that can, would, or should exculpate him from any criminal liability that he may be facing as a result of his intentional, rational actions. He believed, my best understanding is that he believed the very bad advice that Netanyahu was giving him, that he could do a regime change in Iran by decapitating the leadership, killing the Ayatollah, thus sending Iranian society into a civil war, and he could walk out, job done, America. That was a rational, it was stupid, but it was a rational thought process. If I do X, I get Y result. He was stupid. He didn't listen to his National Security Committee. He didn't listen to the Joint Chiefs. He didn't listen to any of the intelligence agencies that responded to this. So he's stupid. He's not insane. He's incompetent, but he's not legally incompetent. And even this Uno Reverso card that he's pulled, blockading the Strait of Hormuz because Iran's blockading the Strait of Hormuz, is a rational, stupid, but a rational response. Iran is making money, more money than it was making before the war, by selling its oil, which is currently not sanctioned to the best of my knowledge. The U.S. lifted the sanctions on Iranian oil, and they've been making more money during the war than they were making. They made more money in the first month of the war than I think they made in the previous year. So this has been, in some ways, economically a boon to Iran. And so the rationale is they should be able to profit when the U.S. is suffering. So I will blockade the Strait of Hormuz, preventing Iran from selling oil or collecting tolls from ships that are passing through, thus putting further economic pressure on Iran, like the U.S. is feeling economic pressure by Iran's blockade. Rational, stupid, but rational, because obviously the oil that Iran was letting through, the oil that Iran was selling, was reducing the stress on the international oil trade, helping to keep oil prices down, or keeping them down more than they would otherwise be. So it's stupid, but it's rational. And my hope is that at some point in time, I know nothing ever happens. I know presidents don't get charged with any crimes, etc. I know this, but I still have hope. And my hope is that at some point, Donald Trump faces criminal charges. At some point, the U.S. is going to have to start holding presidents accountable for war crimes, or else subsequent presidents will continue to escalate it. We have seen an escalation in war crimes from at least Reagan. One could argue that the bombing of Dresden and the nuclear bombing of Hiroshima, etc., that those were also war crimes. One could argue that we did war crimes in Vietnam, but there has been a ever increasing pattern of escalation of war crimes in my lifetime, since I've been aware of politics since at least Reagan. And Reagan wasn't held accountable. George Bush Sr. wasn't held accountable. George Bush Jr. wasn't held accountable. Clinton wasn't held accountable. Obama wasn't held accountable. Nobody's been held accountable. And now we have Trump in office. And he's seen what past presidents have done. And he thinks he has essentially unlimited power through executive orders and through his the grant by Congress of the War Powers Act, or whatever they call that particular act that lets him do stupid shit like he's doing in Iran. But at some point in time, if we don't start holding presidents accountable, if we don't start criminal charges against them for the dumb shit that they've done while they were president, then it's just going to get worse. And my fear, I don't know if fear is the right word, my one of the things that I'm really concerned about with all of this rhetoric that, Trump has all these psychological and mental deficiencies. Oh, he's got dementia, he's got this, he's got that. Those are, at least in the U.S. criminal courts, maybe not in like the international criminal courts, but in the U.S. criminal courts, having some sort of a mental deficiency or psychological deficiency may be a defense. It, not guilty by reason of insanity. Didn't know what he was doing was wrong. He wasn't criminal, he was insane. I don't want to see that. But I also don't think, in addition to that, I don't think that he is insane. I think he is a terrible president who has made terrible decisions, who has not listened to good counsel, who fires or removes people or insulates people who give them advice that he disagrees with, otherwise good advice that he disagrees with. But he's not insane. You could be an incompetent president and still be legally competent, understanding the nature, cause, and effect of your actions. Like, for example, Trump is in a no-win situation right now. He got there because he made stupid decisions, but right now he's in a no-win position, at least for him. Either he concedes to Iran's demands and loses all of his remaining political capital and takes a huge hit to his pride and goes down in the record books as like one of the worst presidents ever, or he maintains a war that he can't win. It's a lose-lose situation. It's the proverbial rock in a hard place. And so anything that he does towards one side or the other is moving towards a no-win situation, is moving towards a bad outcome. And so when you're in that situation and you have to do something, people want you to do something to resolve this mess. So any decision you make is going to be a terrible decision. But that doesn't mean that you're insane. It just means that you don't have a winning option. You're not willing to take the defeat, but you can't force the victory. He's not incompetent. Legally incompetent. He is an incompetent president. But speaking of war crimes, so it turns out that Palantir essentially sold an AI system for targeting to the U.S. And that girl school where we have the captain and commander of some naval vessel being held as the people who ordered the attack relied on this AI tool. Now, AIs can't be held accountable. You can't charge an AI with a crime. AI should never be making decisions like this. Like, AI is terrible in the legal field. I mean, I know Common Joe thinks that AI is the best thing since sliced bread, and I know a lot of other people who don't know their asshole from their elbow when I was talking about AI, who thought that, Claudebot, can go through all the codes and churn out a motion that's better than any attorney. No, it cannot. Because it's not actually intelligent. It's a large language model. It kind of predicts the next words. It's a predictive model. It's not a thinking rational model. So it's terrible in the legal field, but imagine how much more complex figuring out what things to hit, what things to target in a war is. I have no idea what goes into it, but I know that there used to be a chain of command up to a group of people, targeting analysts, who would go through all of this stuff and make decisions on what to hit and what not to hit. And then you had someone accountable for it. Now we have AI doing this targeting for reasons that I can't comprehend. And now there's no one responsible. But I think someone should be responsible. I think someone should be held responsible. And not the people who were ordered to use the AI for targeting, who then used the AI for targeting and said, okay, go ahead and launch. I think it should be whoever did the initial order in the armed forces, or at least in the Navy, whoever made the order that used this AI for targeting, whoever made that order should be held responsible for the 160 girls who died as a result of that order. And whatever other catastrophic targeting decisions have been made, like the targeting of hospitals, I mean, that is inexcusable. That is inexcusable. There's a reason that's a war crime. So that's all I got today. Thanks for watching. Happy Tuesday. Have a great day.